it's okay, Karina, I might start with you. Just maybe introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your business and your business journey and how you've ended up where you are.
The ending up where we are is always interesting, isn't it? So my name is Karina Steep, and I'm the CEO and the co-founder of Prancing Pony Brewery. Prancing Pony Brewery was established 7 years ago, actually 8. It took a year to get all the licenses and all the stuff that you need when you run a booze business. You need to jump through a bit of a few hoops. So we've been running, we started it off with the cash that we had in the back pockets, literally. We didn't have a venture or private equity investor in. We were a couple of people that dreamed about opening up a brewery, and what drove us to it was our love for beer. So we came to Australia in 1982, and we loved a lot about Australia, but we didn't particularly like the beer that was around. And those a bit older in the audience most probably remember Savick, Green Death, which was about the only sort of beer that one could drink at the time. And Frank ventured into a supermarket, found a Cooper's homebrew kit, brewed it. It tasted rather awful. But anyway, he brewed it and didn't get things right. We had all the things that happened to home brewers, but eventually he traveled to the US. He found a Sierra Nevada beer over in the US in the late 80s that introduced us to craft beer, and we came back and we said, this is what beer should taste like, let's make some beers. So he's been brewing forever, and we always had a lot of friends because of that. When we went commercial 7 years ago and we bottled our first 2 pallets, I stood in front of them and I thought, oh my God, now I have to sell them. The making of the beer is the easy part, the selling is the hard part. We now have 22 employees, and one of our longest standing employee is here. Lisa Liebelt has been with us right from the very, very, very start. She was there when we made our first burgers on a sandwich press that we bought at Harvey Norman for $69, and when we were featured in the Gourmet Traveller as the place to have a gourmet burger in the brewery, we thought, yay! Anyway, that's been a long story. We're now located in Totnes, next to our beautiful friends Anthony, and we have a 120 licensed seat venue, and we see approximately 1,000 people a week venture through our venue, buying beer, drinking beer, bringing their children, solving the world's problems, and being good citizens. And it has been a hell of a journey.
Fantastic, thank you. Joyce, first congratulations on your 40 under 40 nomination. And I think you've got a law degree and a chemistry degree, is that correct?
Law and chemical engineering.
Yeah, fantastic. So you're obviously super smart. So talk us through, I guess, going, into business, in the family business, and growing that. That would
There's
be
a bit of debate about super smart, but super stubborn. So I guess I work for Ashton Valley Fresh, which is my family's value add business. My parents are both in the audience, so I got to behave myself. My dad asked me to come back and work for him about 6 years ago. I was working at Mexican Express at the time in my first food industry job, after I realised that I was never going to work in oil and gas, because when food runs in your veins, it really does run in your veins, and it's very hard to get away from. So Dad asked me to come back. He also asked my brother to come back at the same time. We lost 2 of our main management staff in Ashton Valley Fresh. It took me 12 weeks to give my dad an answer. He was not impressed. In the end, I said yes, because I think there's nothing like working for yourself in terms of being able to push for change, and not just for yourself, but in your industry. You have a real voice when you work for yourself. It's a little bit tougher when you work for somebody else. We're 11 years old this year, so 10 plus GST. We had our celebration. I had my first baby in December last year, and that changed the way work looked for me, which has been a really interesting journey. She popped out the same day we opened Lot 100, believe it or not, because that's how life works. We have orchards all over the hills, so we have Nan, Woodside, Ashton, Echunga and Maiponga, so we're very much spread across a few council areas, so we experience lots of different things. But yeah, is that enough?
Yeah, no, great, thank you. Anthony, tell us a bit about yourself and Scarra Small Goods.
Yeah, Scarra Small Goods. Thank you for inviting me down here. Actually, appreciate that. Not that I like doing these sort of things, but I like to tell my story quite often. And my background is some of us, go into business because we either inherit it or we get educated through a process, take a trade. And I was fortunately one of those that didn't like school. Just couldn't stand it. And I see a lot of it in my kids today. One of them is going to university, but one just can't stand it. And down the track, 30 years, I stuck at the industry, which is making small goods and in the meat industry. I learned from some of the masters, a lot of German guys I learned in the early days, because there was a lot of migrants come in the early 60s, 50s, and they brought those trades over. And flourished, and I was actually quite excited about the industry and where it could take me. So down the track, 10 years down the track, I went to my first business venture with a partner and didn't succeed in that. Partnerships are very hard. And went again out the road, learning the industry, learning the good things, the bad things about the industry. And sometimes we get this calling, so I have to get my business, I had to get back into business. And approached my wife. We've done a little bit in real estate. I said, I need 40 grand. I'm going to start this business. And Scarra Small Goods eventuated in 2007. And for some reason, I got called out today because we're known as a successful business out there in the market. We employ 24 workers currently. We've been into exports. We've tried to export for a bit. But currently we're national, so all our products. We have a couple of brands, and one of them I'm really proud of is, my surname with Scarra, but Adelaide Hills Fine Foods is a big brand of ours and very predominant in the market today. I see a lot more big things happening. Currently we're under an issue of expansion. Where do we go from here? That's a tricky one. And and things are really happening out there for us.
Fantastic. That's great. Now, Sarah, I do note your dog Yoko on your Facebook page. But can you tell us a little bit about Cleveland Nursery and your journey to there?
Yeah, I mean, my journey is very different from all the panellists. It's amazing, and I love your product and I love your branding. But I started just because I was a mum for 10 years, and I was still a mum. But I wanted to get back into the workforce. But I didn't want to just go and do a job and it have no meaning, which I kind of felt like it was going to be, because I never, like you, I never really loved school. I always sort of rebelled against it because I was stubborn. So, get to my adulthood and I really, I didn't really have skills in any particular industry that I was going to be passionate about. So anyway, long story short, driving past Cleveland Nursery, and I thought, oh, that's for sale. And then some friends said to me, oh, look, I reckon you would be really great at that. And I said, no, I've got 3 kids. I'm not taking on business. And then the last straw was my husband, who at Christmas time said, did you notice Cleveland Nursery was up for sale? And I was just like, yeah, I did. And he's like, look, I reckon that would be really good for you. And I said, look, I do not want to take on a business because I have 3 children. But I knew I wanted to do something in business, but I didn't want to do a full-time, 7-day-a-week business. Anyway, he said, well, look, what's the harm? Just look into it, see how it goes. And I did, and came across a very sexist real estate agent who refused to give me information because I was a woman. So it took my husband to ring up until I got information. So that was my first taste of, well, okay, like, what's going on here? And that journey's been really interesting for me. I think being in business, you can be taken advantage of, and that's something that I've had to learn to be stronger at. Now I probably am too extreme. Where I break people's balls and they're just like, oh no. But it's good. It's taught me a lot. But the reason why I wanted, in the end, what I chose Cleveland Nursery for is, I mean, I love my garden. I moved to Stirling because I love my garden. But the biggest reason was so every job I've fallen into, it's always been around people. You know, customer service, customer relations, making sure that at the end of the day, the customer is really happy. And I'm just naturally good at that. And I just thought, well, if I mix the two of my both loves, could I make it work? So I did a lot of due diligence, and I thought, well, it was a business that started in 1964. It was run by a family who they wanted to retire, so they stopped working on that business probably 10 years before they sold it. So they didn't do social media, they didn't really market themselves, they hadn't really updated, they didn't embrace new changes and new retail of what did a modern day person want out of a retail experience. So they never really embraced that. So when we were looking at buying the business, that was, I guess, one of the main points that we knew we could probably make it work, is to adopt all of those things that they weren't doing. And it has worked, but the biggest thing for me, being Hills based, is community. Like, that is my focus. It is, where can I help? Where can I put my money so that I'm out there and I'm actually doing what I speak, which is supporting community. So yeah, I will help, primary school gardens. We donate trees. If someone quite high in the community dies, we will go out and plant a tree for them. We will help schools to fund different programs. So that for us is like a massive and a really important branch of our business, is really community focused.
Fantastic. So I'm going to open, like, whoever wants to put their hand up and answer this one, but it's, the Adelaide Hills has obviously got lifestyle benefits for living here, but I'm curious about what some of the benefits might be for doing business here, and, the benefits to your business of being based in the Adelaide Hills. So
rather than them being a customer, they become an extended family, and that's where I see my business in particular, because I know that I'm never going to be an exporter. I'm not going to expand it. I'm actually only ever really going to be in that community, serving my community. So we have different ideas about how to branch out, but ultimately that's where we are.
And I mean, that's an important thing to note too, is to know what you want out of your business as well. It's not always about being, international and all the rest of it. It's about, what's that lifestyle you're after. So, Anthony?
Probably a big thing about it is collaboration between businesses in the hills. It's so, we talk about family and community, and when you get the business together, working together, it's like, our neighbours, Prancing Pony, we just bump off each other quite a bit, You go down Harndorf, the main street, and we're probably in about 70% of the restaurants in there, So when you go in there and you see, such product from Adelaide Hills Fine Foods, it's just a collaboration. That's for a really good feel. And then, like you said, we support a lot of the clubs, the footy clubs, the schools, do a lot of donations. It's a really big thing up here.
I just actually noticed that our connection is definitely through a thread, through everything. We're using your apples to make our apple cider. We actually have a pizza on our pizza board that's called a Scara pizza, because they got exclusively Scara meat. And the trees, before you had the business in our garden, come from your nursery. So we very much about employing local, supporting local, and that goes all the way to using the local printer and not sourcing things potentially from overseas. Yeah, you do pay a little bit more, and you do occasionally get tempted to go elsewhere, but it's all about keeping the dosh in the community, because then the community can stay healthy and wealthy, and hopefully you get a few apprentices coming through it as well. So for us, the motto is our business exists not to make a profit necessarily, but to employ people. And if we employ the right people, they look after our business. And if they look after our business, then the profit comes by itself. So it's a really simple philosophy.
Nice.
One thing I'd like to add is you hear a lot of the jobs that, especially through educated people, they say, all the jobs are interstate. They're in Sydney, Melbourne, all the high-profile jobs, and you know, I've got a degree in this, so I have to go interstate. But what you're hearing now too as well is like, if you haven't got thriving businesses in the hills, everybody's going to go, oh, all the jobs are in Adelaide. Well, that's what we've got to have. We've got to focus on that here.
Yep. Okay. And I imagine, is it, or, you know, it can't all be, you know, rosy doing business in the Adelaide Hills. Is there challenges?
Oh,
You know,
can I start? So one of the positives about being up here is we have space,
Yeah.
which makes expansion really easy. Unfortunately, one of the challenges is having services that keep up with expansion. So a lot of us have to supply our own gas, which is part of this area that we're in, but it needs to be talked about. Have to supply our own wastewater treatment plants if we have excess wastewater, otherwise you have to pay trade waste rates to send that waste to be treated. We need to upgrade our own power poles because a lot of the time they're not ready to support businesses that work on an industrial level, which is fine because that's the thrill of being in the hills. But those are significant financial challenges. And as a small starting business, you perhaps don't think about that, but as the expansion continues, you really do have to plan for those supporting projects.
Yeah, because what I'm hearing that, yeah, they're not cheap exercises.
They are not
No.
cheap exercises, and they can also be really long exercises because you're not just dealing with your local council.
Yeah.
And can I just say, this council is actually quite supportive, a very forward-thinking council. We have a great time dealing with them.
You can absolutely say that.
Yeah. And we cross 3 council areas,
Yeah.
so I think, you know, we have a fair bit of experience dealing with our local councils. But those are things you need to plan for and you need to plan in the future. Sometimes it can take you 8 months to upgrade a power pole.
Yeah.
And if you're expanding a factory and you need that done ASAP, that 8 months should have been planned for 8 months ago.
Yeah.
So that was a big one. I think up here, lifestyle residents can be a challenge for horticulture businesses particularly. We've been operating for a long time. We have people often that move in and say, but you're operating tractors at 4 a.m. And it's like, well, you moved into an area where we were operating tractors at 4 a.m, to be fair. So striking that balance between industry and lifestyle is difficult. Again, needs to be planned for. And a lot of the times it doesn't occur to you until your neighbour moves out and sells their house to somebody else who doesn't like what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not an issue you can really foresee.
Yeah.
What else did I have? B-double access can be difficult in the hills, and that can cause some issues for expansion, particularly for us. We're quite a large apple growing business, so we have no B-double access at our home base in Ashton, and that essentially means that our efficiencies are limited because we can't move stuff in big loads. And that is something people should consider at the start of their journey rather than in the middle, kind of like we have. That is not a criticism, that is just the way things roll. Roads can be a challenge up here, and there's no point saying that that's not a challenge, it is. Navigating any kind of truck up some of the hills roads can be quite the nightmare. So if you can plan to base yourself somewhere where you can come directly off a freeway or directly off our fancy Nan exit or somewhere like that, that's a really huge benefit to you. Phone and internet can also be a challenge, and those are essential things to operate a business in today's environment, would you believe? Our internet at Ashton used to go down every time it rained. Yeah. It was fun. You would like stand up on the roof trying to fix it in the middle of a rainstorm. It's actually quite irritating. And now we've moved to mobile internet, which is fantastic. Technology catches up, makes things easier, but these are definitely things to consider as you're planning where to base your business. So that, yeah, sorry guys.
That's all right, no.
Anything else, guys?
I like to talk.
I think the big lacking is the skills.
Yeah.
You know,
Definitely.
skills perspective in finding the right people for your industry, because you don't have the training facilities up here, so that is a big problem.
Yeah, and people don't necessarily want to come from the city and work up here, or is it?
It's a distance, yeah.
It's a perception.
I was going to say,
thing, not
Yes.
actually a distance thing.
Yeah.
The distance from the hills up is always longer than the distance from the hills down.
Down.
So we have had numerous employees that we would raise this at the start, and you always get, no issue for
It'll
me.
be
No,
fine.
it'll be fine, I'll be fine. And come really, really rainy days and foggy days, it can be a challenge. We've never really found people that worked in the hills and came from town work long term. It works for a short period of time. So we're now sourcing almost 100% our employees from the local pool, and that can be very challenging, in particular when you're looking for senior executive roles or roles where perhaps there is a bigger lure to work for a larger firm in town. So a lot of the young talent can migrate down the hill. So that's definitely a challenge. For us, the challenges are, and this is a very personal one, I'm great envy of Lot 100's location. It's a beautiful location. We are at the end of car parking lots, and we've made the best out of the location that we are, but because we consider the access of trucks, when we're getting glass delivered or when we're getting cartons delivered, they don't come on a small truck, they come on a big truck, and turning in and out from a road wasn't important. So we set up in a light industrial area. From a counselling point of view, when you're setting up a business, you've got to consider what the zoning is. Sure, things can be rezoned, but that can take a long time. So if you're already in the right zoning, that's obviously an advantage. And generally speaking, it comes back when you look at marketing at your 4 Ps. Look at the businesses around you. Like in Harndorf at one stage, I think we had 42 cafes, and you end up with a coffee price war when people try to attract business into a location, and I think all they have to do is open their doors. You don't just have to open your doors, you have to stand out, you have to know who you are and what your point of difference is and how you're actually attracting the people to come up. Like Lot 100 is a destination. We're a destination. If we want to attract people to come up from the city, we have to market as a destination and not as just open the door and hope any bypasser walks in.
That's it. Anthony, I'll look at you first. How important is the regional brand of the Adelaide Hills to your business?
I'll probably look at it first from the marketing perspective. We use that and leverage off that quite often, especially seeing like new clients. I'm actually launching now in WA with a big client, and it looks like it's going to be pretty big business for us. We just said we're in Adelaide Hills.
So that perception's there, and
it's there,
yeah.
you know, and that's why 8 years ago when we launched a brand, Adelaide Hills Fine Foods, we couldn't believe it wasn't taken. You know, so we took it and ran with it. So you see that through the delis, through the Foodlands, and through Adelaide and IGA stores around Australia, and on the restaurants, Adelaide Hills Fine Foods. You know, we're using it, leveraging it.
Yeah.
You know.
Joyce, sorry, you.
No, I'll leave it there.
Yeah. Joyce, what about yourself?
A lot of what's just been said definitely applies to us, but it's saying you're from the Adelaide Hills just gives people the understanding that you're premium.
Yeah.
And they seem to be willing to put their hands in their pockets and support that. Sometimes it can be a struggle because you do expect that higher return value, because the cost of doing business here is more expensive than, say, the Riverland, where perhaps things aren't as premium. No shade to the Riverland, they're great too. But for horticulture particularly, I think that premium, clean, green environment, and the state government's been doing a lot of good things to promote that sort of Adelaide Hills idea. It's really important to us because we sell premium produce. We don't sell bottom of the rung kind of stuff that doesn't taste any good. We're really proud of everything we put on a supermarket shelf, and this being Adelaide Hills clean and green is a big part of that.
Yeah. Do you find that in brewing as well?
We actually got it. The XPA beer that I'm drinking is the only one that doesn't have Adelaide Hills at the front face. But all of our other beers have. We got it on our 4-packs, our 6-packs, our outer packaging. We distribute nationwide and we export. And in export in particular, Adelaide Hills has a real value, just like Barossa has a real value. It is perceived as green and clean, but it is also perceived as boutique.
Yeah.
And so the Barossa has that value, but it can be perceived as a bit of a mass-produced already, while Adelaide Hill is still perceived as a real boutique and that niche sort of market. So having it on the packaging is an advantage. It is a disadvantage for when you think about entering a new market, the local producers have the local card. The local card is a very strong card to play. So sometimes having it on your packaging when you're launching in a particular market interstate, it can be a disadvantage because it immediately identifies you as an alien, as an out-of-towner, and so it can have some disadvantages there. But overall, it is an advantage.
Yeah, fantastic. Sarah, you touched a little bit about what you're doing differently in your business, but yeah, you've been there relatively new. So can you tell us about how you're approaching the nursery business and trying to change the model a little bit?
Yeah, horticulture's funny because it's been so. Well, I'm new to horticulture, and so I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if there was going to be any. I don't know, well, it's very old school. So there's a lot of old people that have done the same thing for many years. And I think sometimes horticulture is, well, I kind of wasn't good at anything else, so I may as well just do plants kind of attitude. And I find that really frustrating because being the new person, I think it's been quite tricky because I do things differently. And I have ruffled a few feathers because I don't understand why do I have to do it this way? Why can't I do it differently? And that's just in who I buy from, who I choose to support. So I'm really new at business. And it's been a massive challenge. Like, it's not easy. I find on a daily basis, like, I'm either, top high, like, it's so great, I'm just so good, and it's going really well. And then the next minute, I'm just like, what have I done? Like, I am just so bad at this. I just want to give up now. I can't do this anymore. Like, what did I do? But at the end of the day, my goal is for Cleveland, is to make someone feel like they've walked home. They're walking into home. They feel like they're home. They feel like, it's somewhere that they just feel comfortable. They can share their life. And eventually, so we've just had approval to rebuild. So I don't know if you've been to Cleveland, but it's like out of this converted. Well, it started as an old car garage, which they then built on, and it's just ridiculous. And winters, in the hills, it just goes on forever. So for me, it's now having a destination within a destination. I'm really lucky. I'm in Stirling. Stirling is promoted very heavily. It is a really beautiful place that people want to go and visit anyway.
It's fancy.
It is fancy, but on the flip side of that is then how do you get people then to enjoy your space as well? So this is where I'm trying to create a destination within a destination, and that is my goal, to surprise people. So making it feel like home, but wowing them at the same time, and creating a space where it's not like, I don't know how many nurseries you've been to, but they kind of just plonk a shed on there and hope for the best, and there's no soul, there's no guts, and and that's again the essential part of my business is to have my business be an extension of myself and a place where I can welcome them into my home and that they can feel that they can share their lives, because the last 2 years, there is so much that's happened within the life of my customers that, we've laughed with them, we've cried with them, we've lost so many, it's an older generation gardens, and, I'm seeing a lot of new ones coming through, but, we're losing a lot of old gardeners, and it's really sad. So, there's a lot of emotion that goes through that place, and we want to be there as an outlet for people. So, but we also want to create an amazing modern space that fits someone's expectation of a retail experience.
Thank you. So, Karina, I'll just come back to you. You're one of the trailblazers of boutique brewing in SA. There's now quite a number. love to hear some of the unique challenges you had. Just sort of being one of those first ones to try and break into the market, and
we weren't strictly speaking the first one. So I'd like to
but
claim
one of them. Yeah.
So there was these microbreweries existed before we were around, clearly, and some of them were quite successful, in particular over in Western Australia. For us, it's when you're starting something, obviously you got to love your product. If you don't love your product, don't do it. If you don't like the smell of fish, don't sell fish. So we love the product, and we have been very lucky in that we sort of decided we would do it small. We would be prepared to lose what we flocked out if it didn't work. Because you don't know. When you enter into something new, you just don't know. You can have the best business plans and your finances right and everything, but you've got to be prepared. You've got to be able to take that risk and say, well, if it goes pear-shaped, you know what, I'll put it in the so what basket. So we did that. We decided that whatever we put on the table, we were prepared to lose. Some of the biggest challenges for us was coming from a very corporate environment. Like, I'm a medical scientist, Frank is a physicist, and we'd worked very corporate careers, a little bit like you did, and then all of a sudden you sort of throw yourselves into business where you're the one that cleans the toilets and the floors, and I'd always had financial controllers telling me my finances, and how the hell do I work zero? So there's so many challenges when you go from a well-oiled machinery and then all of a sudden it's just you. We were really, really lucky to have people like Lisa sort of coming along and saying, I'm in it with you and let's just do it, and rolling up the sleeves and getting it done. But our biggest challenge was to understand who was who in the zoo. So there were those two Sheilas, and excuse the language, but that's how we sometimes perceived in the trade. We, in a very male-dominated industry, we don't have big beards and tattoos and piercings and talk the cool craft beer talk. We came from a very different background. So for us, the biggest challenge was to convince some of those buyers that they had to take us serious and that, they had to deal with us. If you want our beer, you're talking to me, you're not talking to this guy over there because he happens to be male. So that was and is still a significant. Where do you place your beer? So those two pallets of beer, now what, So you've got to do your research, understand where you can place it, and then you've got to understand the margins. Like, if I'm producing this and this is what it costs and whatever, so how much of a clip will, the bottle shop take? How much of a clip will the agent take and the person that's doing the tasting? So you got to cost it out. And I think the biggest challenge for us was about a year into our business, we realized we sold our beer way too cheap. And if we continued doing it, we would go broke very quickly. So we had to increase the price, and we had to increase it by $10 a carton, not $1, 10. So Lisa's challenge was to go out to the shop and say, mate, last week you paid $66, this time it's going to be $76. And I just sent her to the door. And so really, how do you mitigate those kind of challenges? And how do you get those people then still going the journey with you and saying, okay, I'm going to give you a second go, and yeah, Lisa, here's my order for that price. So that was a massive challenge for us. We still have, I think, maybe one store who still hasn't forgiven us that we've increased the price, even though that was 6 years ago. Oh, you increased the price back then, so we won't ever take your beer. But you just got to learn very fast, be honest in what you do, be authentic in what you do. Tell them that you don't know, tell them that you knew, but at the same time stay strong and get your claws out when you have to, and put your foot down when you have to, so you survive.
Yeah, fantastic. Oh, I've got a couple more questions, but I'm going to open up to the floor and see if there's anyone who might have questions in the audience. Anyone out there?
Karina, for you, can I ask, when I'm a big craft beer drinker, and I started drinking craft beer in Western Australia with, I've just forgotten the name of the brewery.
Little Creatures?
Little Creatures. And then came to Adelaide, and there was really no craft beer when I came here. Yours was one of the first craft beers I drank, But now you go to a bottle shop and there's a wall of craft beers, and 2/3 of them are South Australian. How did that affect your business growth?
So I think because we were a bit out there and we made it look easy for a lot of people. You know, people would, right from day one when we opened our door, we had visitors coming up, and the most common question we heard, oh, how much did that cost you to do? And sort of young males quite often thinking about their dream of, you know, their men's shed turning it into a craft brewery. When we started, there was 131 breweries in Australia, and that included the likes of Cooper's and Little Creatures, so the larger ones. Martin Goat in Victoria was already quite big then, and of course Stone and Wood up in Byron Bay were quite large. Now there's 659 was last week's, and a lot of them are not breweries. They're gypsy brewers, or it's a very fancy name for somebody that says, I don't want to invest in stainless steel. I'm just going to do it somewhere, buy me a label. And then there is those pseudo craft, like the large breweries. They make a fancy little label, and you know the Fat Yucks and so forth fall into that category. So if you actually look at beer per se, it's controlled to 90% by the large breweries. So they've been buyouts. It's a very complicated space in which we operate. We have maintained independence. We put that on every single one of our labels. We put it on our 6-packs, on our cartons. We wish to stay independent, and I say it out loud often enough. My vision is to stay independent, just like Cooper's once put up their feet and said, no, we're not going to be bought out by Lion Nathan. It's a very tough gig. When Lisa goes into the shops, she's hit with a wall of hundreds of beer cans, and for the customer it can get very confusing. I think sometimes that when a tide rises, it lifts all the boats, and the solid built boats will survive the tsunami, and that's in the position where we are. We've just recently produced a beer that's called Riding Out the Storm, and that's what we're doing. We're riding out the storm of craft beer. It will come to consolidation. We will see roll-ups, we will see merger and acquisitions, we see breweries fall over, we will see people go bust, all of the above. That will all happen, and hopefully it won't be us. So we're fighting hard. It's tough.
Any more questions from the audience? Yep, Aaron?
Yeah, this might be an extension to that question, but I'm always curious as to who people view their sort of competition. In a smaller market, often industries kind of look left and right at each other, and then in other markets they might look overseas or nationally. So when you look at competition, where are you looking? Where do you see that competition coming from?
For us, it's everywhere.
Yeah. Well, what about the rest of you?
You have to analyse the competition and use it to your advantage. Like our competition is probably the big corporations, and we just leverage off, you know, for instance, our region, we're local, you know, family owned, and tell a story,
Yeah.
you know, and use that. That's what we do, and it works. You know? Yeah, it works well.
And how do you tell the story when you are wholesaling? When you're going out to another, you know, if you're going to Western Australia,
Yeah.
how does that story
Oh, well,
continue?
you've got it today, social media.
Yeah.
Yeah, and use it well. You know, get the right people behind it. And
retain that direct link.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So that's the hardest thing, is actually getting to the customer, because we have a retailer in between. But you can either through social media or, you know, little place cards we put in our products, in our packets. You know, give them that little message. And we are family owned. You know, so it works well.
I suppose lots of people do what we do. It's a natural progression to make apple juice when you have an orchard, because it's a value add and it means not moving apples and give them to somebody else to make extra money off of you. At that point, you don't sort of look backwards, you look forwards, and you figure out your point of difference and you push your point of difference. So for us, it's family owned, it's sustainable, it's premium quality. We don't cut corners. You'll pay a little bit more, but you will get the best product on the market. And if you can back that up with the product, people are happy to pay for that and they're happy to ride along with you for that story. So, yeah, I mean, our industry is super competitive as well, but we know what we do. We invest in doing it well, and I think if you can do that, people are happy to come on the journey with you.
The last thing I'd say is be the leader. Let your competitors
let them
chase
follow you.
Let them follow you. We found out a lot with our product and packaging. You be the leader.
You've got to keep competitors in your eyesight all the time, to the left and to the right, but you can't get obsessed to it because then you become definitely a follower. But with competitors, you really got to, right from the start, know exactly who you are, and decide that this is the persona you're having, and that needs to be reflected through your stories, through your brand, what you do, who you support, which charities you support. I'll give you an example there because we call it Prancing Pony. We continuously get asked by horse racing clubs for support and for sponsorships, and we decline them because they are not in our moral compass of what we do. We don't like that particular part of the sport, so we're declining some of those opportunities. And that's the hard bit, and I think most of you would have heard the saying that it's the things you're saying no to that become more important than the things that you're saying yes to as you progress in your journey. And that's a hard one because there's something luring over there and you just said no, but it has to fit your moral compass, because your customers and your stockists, they see through you. And I think that's what you said, Sarah, if you are about community and giving that space, you can't waver from that.
Well, and also being in retail, sure, I need to know what's going on with, the competitors, and particularly at the moment, indoor plants is huge, and everyone wants to sell an indoor plant. You've got a cafe, well, let's do a side branch of plants and sell plants. And the problem with that is we're starting to get a lot of pests and diseases because people just don't know how to recognise it. They're just selling whatever they want. So that's been a bit of a drama. But for me, I'll always have an eye out of what's going on, but I will not waver from who I am, and I won't compare myself to anyone else. Because when I start comparing myself to others, you get insecure, you start losing your focus, you start going, oh, am I doing this right? Am I doing this? Do I need to do this? And you lose your way.
What advice would you give them? Might start in Sarah or yourself?
It's really hard. Actually, do you know what I find the most challenging is I'm only 2 years in.
Yep.
And for me, and for the businesses here, the wage bill is just massive.
It's phenomenal.
It is so phenomenal. And even government charge, everything. You always feel like you're getting just more and more money just coming hemorrhaging out. So for small business, that's really tricky because you want to be able to work on the business, but you actually have to work in the business. And it's that finding that balance of having enough turnover to be able to say, okay, I'm going to step out for 2 days a week. I'm going to work on the business, and then we can then keep growing. And for me, I'm still at that. I'm in that build stage. I'm still trying to build the reputation back. And so that is my biggest challenge is I just don't have time. I've got 3 children. I've got a 7, a 9 and an 11-year-old. So when I leave work at 5 o'clock, or if I'm lucky at 5, it's not go home, relax, have a glass of wine, maybe check some emails, It's not. It's just hammering, the boys want me, they want my attention, they want dinner, they're hungry, then bed, and you're dragging yourself off to bed at 9 o'clock at night, just going, I need to sleep.
Don't you have 3 jobs?
Yeah.
Because I have 3 jobs.
So, look, I will put it out there. My husband is amazing. He wasn't in the beginning, but he is. I have trained him well.
They do need training.
They do need training. Because I just said, you know what? I'm going for a breakdown because I cannot do this. I cannot do both jobs. So for me, it is a really big challenge of being in a small business, needing to do everything at the moment in this small business. Look, I'll always hand out. I think it's really important to know your weaknesses. And once you have recognised that, to outsource it, to go find someone that is really good at it and get them to do it, because it will save you time, it will save you money, and it will just save you sanity. Yeah, for me, it's wages and trying to get it to a stage where I can step out.
Yeah. So trying to find that balance
Trying to
between
find-
working in it and making sure you've got time to work on it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're here to encourage him. Or
Yeah, please.
I heard this really great quote the other day or read it. When you first start out in business, it's got nothing to do with money. You know, it's about the passion, and that's where I come from. You know, passion was the industry I was in, but what I got to realise throughout the process was it's just a vehicle to get what I want, because the business is going to be there always, and so you're going to always have challenges. I mean, tomorrow we're going to have a new challenge, we're going to have new problems, like you say, with wages and all that. They're just issues, and you've got to take your emotions out of it, and bring your business sense into it. But what gets you through all those challenges is the reason why you got in the business in the first place. Because yes, I did get passionate. I was passionate about my industry and doing it, but that's not the reason why I got in business. My reasons are to provide for my family, have a good lifestyle, those sort of things. I'm not sure if you know the difference between a dream and a goal. A dream is something that makes you get up, makes you, you tingle, that what drives you. A goal is just something you just set on a daily basis, And the other thing is actually, whatever you say, make sure you write it down, plan it. And the other thing is, don't be afraid to ask for help. That's what took us to the next level. We asked first of all, we found the right people, and we asked for the help.
I'll lead with a quote as well, because this was said to me a couple of years ago, and it kind of comes up every day. Your success isn't bought, it's rented, and your rent is due every single day. Particularly in your own business. It's not a joke. It's relentless. You go on holiday and you work. And I don't think you should go into it thinking that's not going to be the case, because for most of us that is the case. You're always working on your business. Set up good systems to begin with, because good systems mean less people. And I know that's not excellent for the economy, but it's excellent for you. Good systems, good people, and automating early if you can afford it. Because again, less people, more reliable. Unfortunately, people are people. People get sick. People quit. People are hard. Machines are more reliable. They break down. You fix them. Yes, it's expensive, but you can pretty much rely on that machine working until the next breakdown. So Joseph and I have watched the business grow in our years there from, I think we've grown 30% year on year the first 3 years, and then since then, steady growth of 10%. And we still have a similar number of staff. It's all about automating and ensuring that your systems work really well. And when your systems work really well, everything works really well. So that's my advice. I hope that wasn't too negative.
No.
Well, I concur. Of course, everything that was said is true. When we go on holidays, but we visit one craft beer bar after the other to actually look at who makes and what style is trending and whatever. Our children, my daughter is here tonight, that's about the few times she can see me. They have to make appointments with us. I have never been very good at the work-life balance. I'm a very driven person, so it's very hard for me to smell the roses and just to do nothing. But I have very early on adopted the view that I would not be afraid to employ people that know more than me and that are much better than me, because they fill my gaps. And so every person that we're employing, I'm looking for what element can they bring to my business that takes a little bit of mine, and that's been our philosophy right from the start. So it makes for good teams. Don't employ people that are very similar to you. You're bringing very similar problems to your business. If you're untidy, they're going to be untidy. If you are obsessed with cleaning, they're going to be obsessed with cleaning. So you really got to look at building great teams and making sure that you're filling all the gaps amongst your team. The cash flow is a particular nasty one. Understand finances. So if you go into business and you think, yep, you just got the passion, but you don't understand the dosh, then you're going to be in trouble very quickly. Cash flow, the C word, the dreaded C word, is a massive item that is always underestimated. I've seen businesses go broke that had fantastic balance sheets and fantastic P&Ls, but they couldn't get the cash in to pay their people. Make sure that you treat your people as the most and the only resource that you have. Because yes, machines you can fix, but if your people walk away or they talk bad about you, you do a lot of damage. So people, number one, number two, number three, make sure they get paid well, make sure you treat them well, and make sure you say every day thank you to them because they're looking after your business.
Fantastic, thank you. Yep, thank our panel members for sharing their time with us. It's been, I found it really insightful and great, so thank you.